The story of African fashion begins deep in the continent's history. It's a story woven from the very land itself. Long before the world knew of catwalks and designers, early African societies were creating clothing. They used the materials that nature provided around them. This was fashion born from necessity, but it quickly became a form of art. People used animal skins, tree bark, leaves, and grasses to protect themselves from the sun and the elements. These early garments were not just simple coverings, they were the first expressions of identity and creativity. They showed a deep connection between people and their environment. This foundation of using local resources is still important in African fashion today. Making these early clothes required great skill and knowledge. People learned how to treat animal hides to make them soft and wearable. They discovered how to beat tree bark until it became a flexible cloth, like the famous bark cloth made by the Baganda people in Uganda. This process was often a community activity, passed down through generations. It was a way of preserving culture and sharing stories. The colors used came from the earth as well. Dyes were made from minerals, plants, and clay, creating rich natural palettes. These early innovations show a remarkable understanding of materials and a desire to create beauty from the natural world. This spirit of ingenuity has never left African fashion. The styles of these early garments were diverse and varied across the vast continent. In some regions, simple loincloths made from beaten bark or woven grasses were common. In others, people wore more elaborate robes made from carefully prepared animal skins. These differences in clothing were not random. They often reflected the climate, the available resources, and the specific cultural practices of each community. A hunter might wear the skin of a leopard as a symbol of their strength and skill. A leader might wear a special headdress made from rare feathers to show their status. This early link between what people wore and who they were is a key part of African fashion's heritage. Even in these ancient times, adornment was just as important as the clothing itself. People decorated their bodies with beads, shells, and carved pieces of wood and bone. Jewelry was not just for decoration, it held deep meaning. It could signify a person's age, marital status, or social rank. It could be used in ceremonies and rituals to connect with the spiritual world. These early forms of self-expression show that fashion in Africa has always been about more than just clothes. It's always been a powerful way to communicate, to celebrate, and to tell the story of a person and their community. This holistic view of style continues to inspire designers today. In Africa, textiles are more than just fabric. They are a language. They carry stories, proverbs, and histories in their patterns and colors. Traditional textiles like kente, bogolanfini, also known as mudcloth, and adir, are rich with meaning. Each symbol and motif has a specific message. For example, kente cloth, woven by the Ashanti and Ewe people of Ghana, has patterns that can represent royalty, wisdom, or bravery. When a person wears a certain kente design, they're not just wearing a beautiful piece of cloth. They're making a statement about their identity, their beliefs, and their place in society. This visual language is a powerful way to preserve cultural heritage. The loincloth is one of the oldest and most fundamental garments in African history, and while simple in its form, its significance is immense. Made from various materials like bark cloth or woven cotton, it represents a direct connection to ancestral traditions. It's a symbol of authenticity and a rejection of more modern Western styles. In many communities, the loincloth is still worn during important cultural ceremonies and rites of passage. It serves as a reminder of where people come from and the values they hold dear. Its enduring presence shows the strength of tradition in the face of change and the deep respect for the ways of the ancestors. Wax print fabric, often called Ankara, has a more complex story. Though strongly associated with West and Central Africa, its origins trace back to the Dutch East Indies and Dutch efforts to mechanize Indonesian batik. These fabrics were introduced to Africa by traders and quickly became incredibly popular. African women embraced them and gave the patterns their own names and meanings. Today, wax prints are a vibrant part of African identity. They're used to make everything from traditional robes to modern dresses. The story of wax print shows how African cultures can adopt and transform outside influences, making them uniquely their own. It's really a testament to the continent's creativity. The social role of these textiles is also very important. Gifting a specific cloth can be a sign of respect or friendship. Certain patterns are worn for specific occasions like weddings, funerals, or festivals. For example, a woman might wear a particular wax print design to announce that she's expecting a child. A family might have its own unique kente pattern that is passed down through generations. In this way, textiles help to strengthen social bonds and mark important life events. They're woven into the very fabric of community life, connecting people to each other and to their shared history. Fashion here is a collective experience. Africa has never been isolated. For centuries, ancient trade routes crisscrossed the continent, connecting different regions and cultures. The Trans-Saharan trade network was one of the most important. Camel caravans traveled across the vast desert, carrying salt, gold, and other goods. Along with these goods came new ideas, new beliefs, and new styles. North African traders brought fine textiles, such as silk and embroidered fabrics, to West Africa. These luxury materials were highly prized by the rulers and wealthy merchants of great empires like Mali and Songhai. This exchange introduced new weaving techniques and decorative motifs that local artisans began to incorporate into their own work. The arrival of new materials had a profound impact on local fashion. West African weavers, who were already masters of cotton and raffia, began to experiment with silk. They would sometimes unravel imported silk cloths and reweave the threads into their own traditional patterns, creating a unique and prestigious hybrid fabric. This blending of local and foreign elements is a key theme in the history of African fashion. It shows a willingness to innovate and adapt while staying true to one's own cultural aesthetic. The demand for these new textiles also stimulated local production, as weavers sought to create their own versions of the luxurious imported goods. The maritime trade routes along the Atlantic and Indian Ocean coasts also brought significant changes. Traders from Europe, the Middle East, and Asia introduced a wide variety of new goods. Indian cottons, Venetian beads, and other decorative items became part of the local fashion landscape. These items were often integrated into existing styles of dress and adornment. For example, the colorful glass beads from Europe became essential to the intricate beadwork of many southern and eastern African peoples, like the Zulu and Maasai. They added new colors and possibilities to an already rich artistic tradition, allowing for even more complex and beautiful designs. However, these trade networks also had a dark side. The transatlantic slave trade brought immense suffering and disruption. It also influenced fashion and textiles in complex ways. African textile traditions were carried to the Americas by enslaved people. They managed to preserve and adapt their weaving and dyeing skills in new and difficult environments. For instance, the use of indigo dye and the creation of patchwork quilts in the American South have roots in West African traditions. This painful history is also part of the story of African textiles, showing their resilience and their ability to survive and transform even in the most challenging circumstances. It's a story of cultural endurance. The arrival of European colonial powers in the late 19th century marked a dramatic turning point for African societies. This period brought profound changes to every aspect of life, including fashion. Colonial administrators, missionaries, and settlers often viewed traditional African ways of dressing as primitive or uncivilized. They actively promoted European styles of clothing as a sign of modernity and conversion to Christianity. Africans who worked in colonial administration or attended mission schools were often required to wear suits, shirts, and dresses. This was a deliberate strategy to impose European cultural norms and weaken traditional identities. Local dress was discouraged and sometimes even forbidden. This imposition of foreign clothing created new social divisions. Wearing European attire became a symbol of status and education, creating a visual gap between a small, westernized elite and the majority of the population, who continued to wear traditional garments. However, this did not mean that Africans simply abandoned their own styles. Instead, a complex process of adaptation and negotiation began. Some people adopted European clothing for work or official business, but changed back into their traditional attire at home. This practice of code-switching in dress allowed people to navigate the new colonial reality while still holding on to their cultural roots. It was a quiet form of resistance. Many Africans also found creative ways to resist colonial pressures through fashion. They began to blend elements of European style with their own traditional aesthetics. This led to the creation of new hybrid fashions. For example, A West African woman might pair a traditional wrapper with a European-style blouse. A Congolese man might wear a tailored suit, but have it made from a vibrant, locally produced fabric. These styles were a subtle but powerful statement. They showed that Africans were not passive recipients of foreign culture. They were active agents who could take new elements and reshape them to fit their own tastes and express their own modern identity. This creative resistance laid the groundwork for the future of African fashion. It fostered a spirit of innovation and self-expression in the face of external pressure. Tailors and seamstresses across the continent became key figures in this movement. They learned to work with new patterns and silhouettes while continuing to use the fabrics and colors that were meaningful to their communities. They helped to create a new fashion vocabulary that was both African and modern. This period of challenge and adaptation ultimately strengthened the continent's creative spirit, proving that fashion could be a powerful tool for asserting cultural pride and resilience even under difficult circumstances. The mid-20th century was a time of great change in Africa. Countries across the continent were gaining their independence from colonial rule. This was a moment of immense pride and optimism. As new nations were born, their leaders and citizens looked for ways to express their newfound freedom and unique national identities. Fashion became a very visible and powerful tool for this. Many of the first post-independence leaders made a conscious decision to reject the European suits of their colonial predecessors. Instead, they chose to wear clothing that celebrated their African heritage. This was a bold political statement. Leaders like Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana with his kente cloth, and Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, now the Democratic Republic of Congo, with his abacost suit, used fashion to promote a sense of national pride. Nkrumah's choice of kente, a fabric rich with historical meaning, connected his modern political vision to the ancient glory of the Ashanti Kingdom. Mobutu's abacost, a simplified suit worn without a tie, was part of his wider authenticity policy, which aimed to purge the country of colonial influences. By wearing these garments on the world stage, these leaders sent a clear message. Africa was proud of its culture and ready to forge its own path. This political embrace of traditional attire inspired people across the continent. There was a widespread movement to dress African. People began to wear traditional and locally made clothing not just for ceremonies, but in their everyday lives. This was a way for ordinary citizens to participate in the project of nation building. It was a rejection of the colonial idea that European dress was superior. Wearing African fashion became a symbol of cultural decolonization and a celebration of everything that had been suppressed. Local textile industries were promoted, and tailors and designers became important figures in shaping these new national styles. This period also saw the birth of the first generation of formally trained African fashion designers. They emerged from the excitement and creative energy of the independence era. These pioneers began to study traditional textiles and craft techniques, looking for ways to adapt them for a modern urban audience. They created new silhouettes and styles that were proudly African, but also international in their appeal. They laid the foundation for a professional fashion industry on the continent. Their work demonstrated that African fashion was not just a relic of the past, but a dynamic and evolving art form with a bright future. Following the independence era, a new generation of African designers emerged. They were ready to take the continent's fashion to the next level. These designers were often educated in the fashion capitals of Europe and America, but they remained deeply connected to their African roots. They returned to the continent with a new perspective and a desire to create something fresh and exciting. Their work was defined by a beautiful blend of tradition and modernity. They took the rich heritage of African textiles, patterns and craftsmanship, and reinterpreted them in contemporary ways. This fusion created a new, sophisticated African aesthetic that began to capture global attention. Designers like Chris Seydou from Mali and Alfadi from Niger were pioneers of this movement. Seydou became famous for his masterful use of traditional Malian fabrics like bogolanfini or mudcloth to create elegant, Parisian-style silhouettes. He showed the world that African textiles could be luxurious and high fashion. Alfadi, known as the magician of the desert, blended the styles of the Tuareg and other Sahelian peoples with a futuristic vision. His designs were bold and architectural, yet they were always grounded in African culture. These designers proved that tradition was not a limitation, but a powerful source of inspiration for modern design. The key to this creative renaissance was the respectful use of heritage. These designers were not simply copying old styles. They were engaging in a deep conversation with their culture. They studied the meanings of ancient symbols, the techniques of traditional weavers and dyers, and the stories embedded in the fabrics. They then used this knowledge to inform their modern collections. This approach ensured that their work was authentic and meaningful. It was a way of honoring the past while creating something new for the future. This commitment to cultural integrity became a hallmark of the best African fashion. This blending of old and new can be seen in many ways. A designer might use a traditional hand-woven ASO, OKE fabric from Nigeria to create a sharply tailored blazer. Or they might take the vibrant colors of a Maasai bead necklace and use them as the print for a silk maxi dress. They might also collaborate directly with local artisans, combining their own design vision with the artisans' centuries-old skills. This process creates fashion that is not only beautiful, but also rich in story and soul. It is this unique ability to bridge worlds that makes contemporary African fashion so compelling and dynamic. The arrival of the internet and social media has completely transformed the global fashion landscape. For African designers, these digital tools have been revolutionary. In the past, it was very difficult for them to reach an international audience. They were often overlooked by mainstream fashion publications and buyers. The internet changed all of that. Suddenly, a designer in Lagos or Accra could have a global platform. Websites, online boutiques, and social media accounts became powerful tools for showcasing their work, telling their stories, and connecting directly with customers all over the world. This digital revolution has democratized the fashion industry. Platforms like Instagram and Pinterest have become virtual runways for African fashion. Designers, stylists, and fashion influencers can share their latest creations and style ideas with a global audience instantly. A single photo of a striking outfit can go viral, bringing overnight attention to a previously unknown designer. This has led to a huge increase in awareness and appreciation for the diversity and creativity of African style. People from all corners of the globe can now see and be inspired by the vibrant prints of wax cloth, the intricate weaves of kente, and the modern silhouettes coming out of the continent's fashion hubs. This new visibility has also fostered a powerful sense of pride among Africans and the global diaspora. Seeing African fashion celebrated online has helped to challenge outdated stereotypes about the continent. It has shown the world that Africa is a place of immense creativity, innovation, and style. Young people in particular have embraced this movement. They use social media to share their personal style, which often blends traditional elements with global trends. This has created a dynamic and confident new generation that is proud to wear its heritage and express its identity through fashion. Furthermore, e-commerce has opened up new economic opportunities for African designers. They are no longer solely reliant on local markets or a few international stockists. Through their own online stores or platforms that specialize in African goods, they can sell their products directly to a global customer base. This allows them to build sustainable businesses on their own terms. It gives them control over their brand narrative and ensures that they receive a fair share of the profits. The digital age has empowered African designers to become major players in the international fashion industry. As the global profile of African fashion has grown, so has the need for professional platforms on the continent to showcase its talent. This has led to the rise of fashion weeks in major cities across Africa. Events like Lagos Fashion Week, Accra Fashion Week, and South Africa Fashion Week have become essential dates on the international fashion calendar. These events provide a crucial stage for both established and emerging designers to present their latest collections to a local and global audience of buyers, press, and fashion lovers. They are a vibrant celebration of the continent's creativity. These fashion weeks are more than just a series of runway shows. They are important business hubs that help to build a sustainable fashion ecosystem. They organize workshops, seminars, and networking events that connect designers with manufacturers, suppliers, and investors. They help to professionalize the industry by setting high standards for quality and presentation. By creating these opportunities, fashion weeks are helping to turn individual creative talents into viable, scalable businesses. They are building the infrastructure needed for the African fashion industry to thrive on a global scale. The impact of these events extends beyond the fashion industry. They are a powerful source of cultural pride and a showcase for the host city and country. When Lagos hosts its Fashion Week, the world's attention is focused on the city's energy, creativity, and style. The events attract international visitors, generate positive media coverage, and challenge negative stereotypes about the continent. They highlight Africa as a center of modern culture and innovation. This positive branding has benefits for tourism, investment, and the creative industries as a whole. It helps to reshape the global perception of Africa. Moreover, these fashion weeks have become a vital platform for discovering new talent. Many events have specific programs and awards for young, emerging designers. This gives them a chance to gain visibility, receive mentorship, and launch their careers. The collections seen on the runways in Africa often set trends that ripple out across the world. The unique blend of heritage and modernity, the bold use of color and print, and the focus on craftsmanship offer a fresh and exciting alternative to the established fashion capitals. African fashion weeks are not just following global trends, they are creating them. As the African fashion industry continues to grow, there is a growing conversation about its future direction. One of the most important themes in this conversation is sustainability. Many designers are looking to the past for inspiration. Traditional African practices of making clothing were inherently sustainable. They used local natural materials, natural dyes, and produced things slowly and by hand. There was very little waste. Today's designers are reviving these principles. They are choosing to work with organic cotton, raffia, and other eco-friendly materials. They are exploring the use of plant-based dyes instead of harsh chemicals. This is fashion that respects both people and the planet. This focus on sustainability is closely linked to a commitment to ethical production. The global fashion industry is often criticized for its exploitation of workers and its negative environmental impact. Many African designers are determined to do things differently. They are building businesses that are fair and transparent. This often means working in close collaboration with local artisans. Designers partner with communities of weavers, beaders, and dyers, ensuring they are paid a fair wage for their incredible skills. This model not only preserves traditional crafts, but also provides sustainable livelihoods and empowers local communities, particularly women. It creates a fashion system based on respect and partnership. The future of African fashion is also being shaped by the continent's incredibly youthful population. Young designers, stylists, and fashion entrepreneurs are bringing a new energy and perspective to the industry. They grew up in a connected digital world, and they are not afraid to experiment and break the rules. They are skillfully blending local heritage with global subcultures, from streetwear to Afrofuturism. Their work is bold, confident, and unapologetic. They are using fashion to explore complex issues of identity, culture, and social change. They are the driving force behind the industry's constant evolution. Ultimately, the future of African fashion looks incredibly bright. It is a future that is rooted in a deep respect for cultural heritage, but is not bound by it. It is a future that prioritizes sustainability and ethical practices, offering a more conscious alternative to fast fashion. And it is a future that is being driven by a new generation of creative talents who are proudly telling their own stories to the world. The journey of African fashion is a testament to the continent's resilience, creativity, and enduring spirit. The threads of the past are being woven into a bold and beautiful new tapestry for the future.